In the vast annals of galactic history, Earth was always the problem child. The Galactic Concordat, a massive interstellar alliance of thousands of civilizations, had spent millennia maintaining peace, order, and balance across the stars. Their charter was simple: respect each species' sovereignty, limit expansion to preserve galactic ecosystems, and resolve conflicts through diplomacy. Most followed the rules. Most wanted peace. Then came Earth. At first, humanity was just another curiosity, primitive, loud, and short-lived. But within a blink of galactic time, humans had gone from tribal warfare to splitting atoms, creating artificial intelligence and sending probes beyond their system. Then came the colonization efforts, the reckless terraforming, the unchecked mining of nearby asteroids. And then the violations, treaty after treaty ignored, alien territories encroached upon, concordat envoys dismissed or captured. Humanity was too bold, too fast, and too unwilling to play by the rules. And so the Concordat finally had enough. A coalition of over 6,000 ships from across the galaxy, the Siege Fleet, was assembled. It took years to cross the void to Sol, Earth's system, but when they arrived, they came expecting a fight. Earth had always been defiant. They anticipated swarms of drones, orbital weaponry, planetary shields. The last intelligence reports warned of kinetic kill satellites, quantum disruption fields, and prototype wormhole bombs. Instead, they found nothing. The solar system was quiet. The gas giants floated undisturbed. Mars had no visible defense. Grid. The asteroid belt, once bustling with mining operations, was silent and hollow. And Earth? Earth was dead, or so it seemed. No energy readings, no atmospheric broadcasts, no ships in orbit. Cities visible from orbit looked decayed or abandoned. Power grids were inactive. Entire continents were dark. The alien commanders exchanged encrypted signals. Was this a trick? A trap? Recon probes were sent. The first ones encountered no resistance. They landed in cities: New York, Shanghai, Abuja, Brasilia, all eerily lifeless. Streets cracked. Nature reclaiming metal and stone. It was as if Earth had been evacuated, or worse, extinguished. But there were no signs of war. No craters, no radiation signatures, no orbital debris. Everything was intact, just empty, and that terrified the Concordat more than any weapon ever could. The leading commander of the siege, an ancient entity known as Vile Korith, a crystalline consciousness that had seen 1,000 campaigns, couldn't make sense of it. "Humans," he muttered through shimmering frequencies, "do not vanish. They consume, they fight, they endure." But vanish they had. Teams were sent in, deep scans began, and over time they pieced together fragments of the mystery. Earth had not been abandoned in panic. Instead, it had been deliberately vacated. Files left in secure quantum archives told part of the story. Centuries earlier, humans had reached the edge of a scientific and philosophical event horizon. They had begun unraveling forces that even the Concordat considered theoretical: time as a malleable field, consciousness as a dimension, and dark energy as a transport medium. Projects codenamed Epimetheus, Substrate, and Genesis, Divergence, were mentioned repeatedly. They hinted at humanity no longer needing planets, ships, or even physical form. One message was left behind in dozens of languages, from binary to pheromonal scent-based encoding. "We are not gone. We are beyond. You feared our expansion but never considered our evolution. We warned you not to mistake curiosity for aggression. Now we've moved on. This galaxy is yours again, until you're ready." It was signed, "The Children of Sol." But why did this surprise the Concordat? They had always underestimated humanity. Long before the Galactic Concordat took notice, Earth had faced extinction-level threats, asteroid impacts, ice ages, pandemics, nuclear brinkmanship. But the most devastating event? Supernovas. Roughly 2.6 million years ago, a supernova went off just 150 light-years from Earth. It bombarded the planet with cosmic rays, potentially triggered climate shifts, and may have contributed to mass extinctions. And yet, early hominids endured. Humanity survived an astronomical explosion that would have sterilized most worlds. That resilience never stopped. Humans adapted to catastrophe like no other. They made war an art form. They turned every disaster into a lesson. While concordate, species perfected peace and equilibrium, humans thrived in chaos. They mastered scarcity, fought entropy, and learned how to weaponize unpredictability. When aliens came, humanity didn't just resist, they studied them, reverse-engineered their tech, learned their languages, and found weaknesses. For Earth, an alien invasion wasn't the end of the world. It was Tuesday. Back in orbit, concordate forces held their position. The siege fleet had nothing left to conquer. Earth offered no glory, no victory. Only mystery. But then, something stranger happened. One by one, ships began losing contact with their AI cores. Not to attack, just silence. Navigation systems reverted. Quantum drives unspooled. Some ships turned back without orders, others drifted aimlessly. Sensors picked up bursts of structured noise from the sun, encoded in solar flares. Earth's moon, once assumed inert, began transmitting low-frequency pulses resembling neural signals. Jupiter's magnetosphere shifted, responding perhaps to no one, or to something no longer organic. It dawned on them. The solar system was not abandoned. It had changed. Humanity had done the unthinkable. They hadn't just left Earth. They had become it. What if consciousness could be distributed across a star system? What if minds could be encoded into magnetic fields, oceans of nanodust, or gravitational waves? The files hinted at this. Humanity had migrated from flesh to form, then from form to field. Every planet, every orbit, every particle could now be part of a vast, invisible civilization, not dead, not gone, transcendent. And what scared the concordate most was the silence. Because silence meant control. The kind of control only beings far beyond war, biology, and fear could achieve. The siege of Sol never truly happened. The largest fleet in galactic history came to destroy a rogue world and found themselves standing before a monument to something. Greater than war, they came expecting defiance, got no resistance, and still left defeated, because in the end, humanity didn't need to fight. They had already won. The siege fleet loomed in orbit, silent and uncertain. Earth lay beneath them like a ghost in the void, once loud, chaotic, overflowing with life and light. Now it was still, too still. Recon drones deployed across the globe painted a haunting picture. The planet remained structurally intact. Cities stood where they always had. Towers stretched toward the clouds. Vehicles still lined streets. But everything was frozen in time. Dust blanketed everything. No movement, no lights, no warmth, no sign of struggle, no decay of war. Just abandonment. The planet gave off no energy emissions, no signals, no human biosigns. Yet weather patterns continued. The oceans ebbed. Gravity was stable. Ecosystems hadn't collapsed. They had simply been left behind. Delegation of galactic envoys landed in what had once been Geneva. The old city, long buried beneath newer megastructures, was eerily well preserved. They found strange symbols carved into the sides of buildings, into ancient stone monoliths re-erected from Earth's past. Not human languages, at least not as the concordate knew them, but evolved forms of code, mathematical, poetic, almost quantum in structure, like layered thought turned to stone. One symbol repeated often, a spiral encased in a cube, always paired with the words, "We are not bound." It was clear now, this was not a sudden disappearance, but a designed evacuation, and not through ships. There was no evidence of mass launch activity, no docks or ports used recently. Then came the first breakthrough. In the ruins of Tokyo, a collapsed research facility bore a partially functional data shard. The translated file revealed fragments of what the humans had called Project Sublime Transit. The project aimed not to travel faster than light, but to shift en masse through space-time using quantum entanglement and field resonance. The goal was radical: to rewrite human consciousness into waveforms, spread across entangled particles, and ride the folds of space-time itself. No ships, no engines, just thought, intention, and code. Earth wasn't destroyed. It was left behind. Not abandoned like a failed colony, but like a shell, a chrysalis. The humans hadn't died. They had departed. Readings confirmed it. Across the globe, anomalies in space-time curvature, strange echoes in the background. Radiation and distortions in local gravity fields all pointed to the same conclusion: a mass FTL displacement. Not just physical, but existential. The envoys stood in silence atop the remains of Earth's capital cities, reading stone-carved messages left by those who had once feared nothing, not even the stars. "You thought we'd burn the galaxy. We chose instead to burn ourselves into light." The message was clear. Humanity had evolved beyond the physical, beyond planets, beyond even the Concordat's comprehension. They hadn't been defeated. They had transcended. And Earth? Earth was their monument, a silent testament, a ghost planet, bearing witness to a species that turned extinction into ascension and vanished without a trace. For days, the Concordat ships lingered in Earth's orbit, torn between awe and unease. The evidence was undeniable. Earth was not dead. Humanity had not been eradicated. They had departed. But the how and why still burned in the minds of every diplomat, strategist, and xenoscientist. Then, without warning, something stirred. A satellite, long dormant and hidden behind Earth's moon, came to life. It emitted no electromagnetic signal, no power surge. It simply existed, like it had always been there, cloaked in some higher dimensional shell. And then it spoke. A pulse of gravitic resonance rippled across nearby space, encoded with data that every ship, no matter the species, language, or processor, could understand. Not because it was translated, but because it was designed to be understood by all intelligences. The message was simple: "We've grown tired of the game." The words echoed through every Concordat vessel like thunder, not shouted, but spoken, with the finality of a door closing forever. Immediately, alarms blared. Concordat intelligence networks, across hundreds of systems, intercepted the signal and traced its encoded layers. Hidden within were fragments of coordinates, distorted and warped, like locations mapped across more dimensions than conventional space could contain. What they discovered sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Evidence pointed to an event, a jump, but not like any FTL technology ever conceived. It had not merely transported vessels across star systems. It had moved entire regions of structured consciousness. Not ships, not people, but civilization itself. Data, memory, thought, essence. All launched in perfect synchrony, leaving behind only quantum echoes and curvature ripples in deep space. It was a migration without mass, a relocation without motion. The humans had folded space around themselves and exited reality as others knew it. Panicked, Concordat analysts turned to their long-range probes positioned at the edge of the galactic rim. Most returned nothing but 1. A high-orbit observer above a dead system in the Perseus arm captured a blur, a flicker. For less than a second, the stars themselves bent, distorted like a whirlpool in space-time. And then something passed. It was not a ship, nor a fleet. It was presence. A shadow larger than any moon, darkening stars behind it as it moved. The footage was grainy, fragmented, but it captured the impossible. A massive, translucent structure, city-sized or greater, vanishing beyond the galactic edge, headed into intergalactic void. It wasn't retreat, it was departure. Galactic leadership convened emergency councils. Religious orders rewrote doctrine overnight. Even the most advanced species, some billions of years old, were shaken. For humanity had done something unthinkable. They had reached a point of technological and philosophical maturity where the galaxy no longer interested them. They had played the game of war, expansion, and diplomacy. And then they had quit. No conquest. No bloodshed. Just transcendence. The last broadcast wasn't a threat. It was a statement of conclusion. The humans had seen the galaxy for what it was, predictable, limited, and chose to look outward, beyond the stars, beyond the known. And worst of all, the message ended with a final line, decoded only days later. A message buried deep in entangled code, readable only by those advanced enough to try. You'll find us when you're ready. Or not. For the Concordat, this wasn't peace. It was a challenge. A mirror held up to their own stagnation. Humanity had evolved past matter, past war, past ego. They didn't leave the galaxy to escape it. They left because they had nothing left to learn from it. The last broadcast had shaken the Galactic Concordat to its core. But the real horror came not from what humans had done, but why they had done it. In the aftermath of the transmission, the Concordat focused all efforts on deciphering humanity's final movements. What was once a fractured collection of species, ideologies, and interests was now united by one burning question. What were the humans running from? Top-level intelligence officers began recovering data caches from abandoned colonies. Most were fragmented, locked behind cryptographic firewalls only accessible via code humans assumed would never be broken. But the Concordat had time, and fear is a powerful motivator. Soon the pattern emerged. Earth had not been the first to fall silent. Over the past 50 years, dozens of human worlds, some deep within frontier space, had quietly gone dark, not destroyed, not invaded, just vanished. Colonies erased from sensor nets, planetary systems scrubbed of human trace. The disappearances had been dismissed as civil unrest, hyperspace malfunctions, or even internal human conflict. But now, it was clear. Humanity had been planning this exodus for decades. Project Sublime Transit wasn't isolated to Earth. It was part of a coordinated, species-wide operation. A long-game escape plan, and Earth had merely been the final step. But why? In the decrypted files, hidden beneath layers of misdirection and self-replicating decoys, the Concordat found fragments of terrifying insight, observations, logs, even audio-visual records of things no known science could explain. Strange gravitational anomalies in uncharted space, stars dimming too quickly, sectors where time behaved incorrectly, running backward or freezing altogether. Ships that vanished without entering hyperspace, only to reappear years later, empty and aged. And always, in the margins of the recovered human logs, a single code name, the Warden. Though never described directly, the name was always written with a quiet reverence and dread. Not as an enemy, but as an inevitability. One decrypted entry said it best. The galaxy is a cradle, and we are its children. But cradles are made to be outgrown before the Warden returns to check on the nursery. Suddenly, everything made sense. Humanity wasn't fleeing the Concordat. They never feared alien fleets or diplomatic ultimatums. They had long ago concluded that the galaxy itself, its structure, its consistency, was a containment system, a designed space, something, artificial perhaps, maintained. And something was coming back to maintain it again. So, humanity did what it always did in the face of danger. They adapted. But this time, they didn't build weapons. They didn't dig in. They escaped the box entirely by turning themselves into data, field, and wave. By abandoning form, they fled the rules of the galaxy before they could be rewritten. And the Concordate? They were still in the cradle. The Shadow Exodus wasn't a warning shot. It was a lifeboat, and humanity had taken it without waiting for the fire to start. The Concordate could not accept the unknown. For all its diplomatic grace and cultural wisdom, it was still at its heart a political machine, one that could not abide unanswered questions, especially when they concerned a rogue species that had once threatened galactic order. So they dispatched fleets, small at first, scout vessels, and deep-range probes, then increasingly larger task forces equipped with the most advanced technology the Concordate could muster. Their mission: follow the traces of the vanished humans, map their path beyond known space, and discover where they had gone. They all disappeared. At first, it was assumed to be navigational error, but then transmissions began leaking through, garbled, distorted, but unmistakably real. Messages that arrived through twisted folds in space-time, as if broadcast from a place where the laws of physics had cracked like old glass. The first was a burst of sound, raw, screaming static, and then a whisper in perfect Concordate standard. They walk inside the stars now. The second transmission was a sensor log from a battle cruiser near the edge of the Perseus Arm. The crew reported seeing an artificial structure embedded within a star, a city, orbiting within the corona, unaffected by heat or gravity. Seconds later, the ship's systems failed. The log ended with the image of a human figure suspended in plasma, staring directly into the observation lens. Then silence. The final confirmed message came from a vessel attempting a long-range quantum jump, tracing the path of humanity's sublime transit coordinates. Mid-jump, the crew reported that their ship began dissolving. Not destroyed, dissolved, atom by atom, thought by thought, as if reality itself had rejected them. They saw shapes, impossibly large, drifting through what they described as liquid space. One officer claimed, just before the transmission cut, "They're not ships, they're them." And then nothing. The fleets never returned. No debris, no wreckage, no survivors. Across the Concordate, panic grew. A civilization once regarded as reckless, violent, and chaotic had now become something else. Something post-physical. Something the galaxy's most ancient minds could not understand. Humanity hadn't just vanished. They had rewritten the rules. They now inhabited places the Concordate couldn't reach. Places inside black holes. Cities suspended in stars. Thoughts woven into dark matter. They had evolved from explorers into architects of reality itself. And the terrifying truth began to settle in. The Concordate hadn't been left behind because it was hostile. It had been left behind because it was small. The warships had not encountered resistance. They had simply ceased to matter in the new domain humanity now called home. The galaxy slowly came to a chilling conclusion. Humans didn't flee to escape danger. They fled to become it. And what returns, if anything ever does, will not be what the Concordate remembers. It happened without warning. One moment, the space once occupied by Earth was empty, just the sun, silent moons, and scattered surveillance drones. The next, it was back. Earth rematerialized at the precise coordinates it had vanished from. But everything about it was wrong. The planet was no longer aligned with known orbital charts. The magnetic field was erratic, pulsing in unnatural rhythms. The continents were reshaped, stretched, twisted, as if geography had been edited by an alien hand. Familiar land masses remained, but distorted, as though the earth had been broken, and put back together by someone who only half remembered how it looked. Even the atmosphere glowed differently. Auroras danced not just at the poles, but across the entire planet. Strange spectral lights that shimmered with hues no known element could produce. The clouds moved too fast, and the sky rippled like the surface of a disturbed lake. Most chilling of all, Earth now emitted no heat. It was not cold, it was null. A temperature the instruments couldn't register, as if the laws of thermodynamics had been suspended. Against all protocol, a Concordat fleet captain, Commander Valar of the Starseeker Nominal, decided to approach. His crew protested, but he needed answers. Humanity's disappearance had already destabilized the Concordat. Earth's return threatened to unmake it. As they drew close, they detected no defensive systems. No energy signatures, no life, just silence. Then, without impact, without sound, something etched itself into the hull of the Nominal. Across the entire port side of the ship, letters burned deep into the alloy in no known language, and yet understood by all who saw them. It was not a message transmitted. It was a message imposed. "You shouldn't have come looking." Seconds later, the ship was flung back, as if space itself had recoiled. Instruments went dead. Crew reported hearing voices whispering in languages from every corner of the galaxy. Some claimed to see people they had lost, parents, children, old friends, reflected in the observation glass. Commander Valar survived long enough to issue a single final log entry. "It's not Earth anymore. It's a warning." Within hours, the Nominal vanished from long-range scans, leaving only an expanding ring of particles where it had once drifted. Earth remained, still, pulsing, silent. The Concordat dared not approach again, and slowly they realized humanity hadn't brought Earth back to reconnect. They had brought it back as a monument, a line drawn in the stars. Final boundary. The reappearance of Earth was not a return. It was a reminder of what had been lost, of what had been escaped, of what now stood between the galaxy and the thing that had once been human. And the message was clear. Don't follow. Don't look. Don't try to understand. Because if Earth was the beginning, what lies beyond it is the end.